Hello, welcome to the podcast of Startup Recruitment Failures. I'm Indra, founder and CEO of Job Rely. We are building AI for outbound recruitment. And today, my guest is Bruno Pires, co founder and managing partner at Here Partners. Bruno, could you please introduce yourself and your company?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the invitation, Hindri. I am Bruno. I'm co-founder of Here Partners. Here Partners is an innovation consultancy company. We are based in Portugal, but we help projects in all Europe to access grants. So we work with public funding and helping startups and companies to design their fundraising strategies and mix that with the funding opportunities available and help them in accessing that. Okay, so since we are working with a lot of startups and a lot of companies, we are totally aware of the pains and struggles of recruitment process because despite we are not working directly with recruitments, we face most of the times the challenge that the companies that need to face when they are recruiting because they use a lot of the money that we can get for them through the grants to do that.
Yeah, so mainly the money is being used for the hiring and growing their teams.
Exactly.
So, what are the main lessons or the main insights you learned?
Sure. There are important things to retain when you are accessing public funding. The first of all is that in Europe, mostly in Europe, the grants and the public funding are coming from taxpayers' money. So when we are talking about taxpayers' money, they are bureaucracy. Okay, bureaucracy will be aligned with the transparency of the process. So since you are accessing public money, you should be aware that there will be things to report, things that you need to show to the public institutions that are managing these funds. So it should be, or when you apply for this funding, you should be aware that there are these requirements and you should meet with them. So you should prepare in advance. Okay, and of course, I already had some stories with clients that did this before they applied. So when they access the funding, when they got approved and they have the money available, they cannot meet the requirements. Okay? And this is quite common with startups because startups usually have their growth plan. They are already looking for the next funding round and they have some metrics to achieve. But when we talk about public money, the things work differently.
Yeah.
And we have to fit exactly in your plan. So it's really important that you design and create plan of your recruitment needs, that you separate what are the critical roles that you need to recruit and what are the ones that are for short period tasks, okay? Because there are different schemes and different types of action to fund different things. Okay, so that's important to
basically to prioritize, right?
Exactly.
What is a priority?
And you should, of course, there are flexibility to change things because a lot of things can change during the
Everything
process.
changes constantly.
Of course, in the startup world, it happens in a faster way. But you should have a plan. You should more or less stick to it, okay? Because you cannot. For example, you cannot say that you will recruit 100 people and at the end you will not recruit and then you will have 10 new hires and you will spend the other part of the money in other things. That will not work with public funding, with grants. Okay, so that's one of the important things. And the other is the reporting process. Okay, because like I said, this is public money. There are bureaucracy attached to it, and when you do that, you need to show them to open your books. You have to show them your payroll. You have to show the recruitment process. You have to show everything related with the cost that you are getting the funding to spend with. Okay, so when you're talking about people, you have to show which people are you hiring, CVs, backgrounds, and the tasks that they are working with. Okay, so you are opening the books and you have to be prepared for that.
So, and you think that the failure in both of the things you mentioned happens because of not being aware before starting the process, or I don't know, lack of information or lack of time because it's too complicated, to prepare everything and to report. Why do you think this happens? And pretty often, as you said, right?
Yeah. First of all, we exist because of that. We exist to prepare startups, to prepare companies to the requirements of funding like this. Okay, so our job is exactly to help them not only in doing the application, getting everything funded and prepared,
Mhm.
but also having in advance all the things that you have to report and all the things that you have to show in the future. So if you, in the moment that you are preparing your application, that you are looking for funding, if you know in advance they will be asking in 1 year or 2 years,
Mhm.
you will be in a better position to everything managed and control. But I think that when things go wrong are mostly because of two things. Okay,
Mhm.
one, yes, is lack of information, or not lack of information, but the information is not structured to
Mhm.
be easy to access or easy to read. Okay,
Mhm.
because most of the times it's by public tenders and public calls, and we're talking like big, a wide amount of information, a
Mhm.
lot of papers to
Yeah.
read, and there are a lot of rules to understand. Okay, so most of the times, and when we talk about startups, this is even more common, that
Mhm.
you don't have the time or the resources
Yeah.
to to, to take attention or to read everything with attention. So you are not prepared, or you don't know anything everything when you are applying. Okay,
Mhm.
that's one of the
That's
things.
normal
Of
for
course,
startups,
of
especially.
course. Again, that's why we exist,
Yeah.
to try to make it less time consuming
Mhm.
for startups, so they can keep focusing on their
Mhm.
product, on their service, on their product development, and they can pass or outsource everything that's not critical for their business. It's a
Mhm.
support business, it's not critical.
Mhm.
The other thing is the preparation. Okay,
Mhm.
is that even when you know what you need to prepare or to know in
Mhm.
advance about these requirements, you should have an accurate plan. You should perfectly align what you want to do, have a perfect work plan, the resources you need to allocate, and again, you can change, you can make few adjustments during the process, but the plan should be more or should stay more or less the same.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's very important to prepare that in advance, not only for to be easy to manage the project, but even for the approval. Okay,
Mhm.
if
Yeah.
you are accessing the funding or if you are looking to access these fundings, you should prepare and should show that you have a plan. You know everything about your business. You know everything that you need to
Mhm.
reach to some milestones, and to do that, you need this money to do that. Okay, so it's really
Mhm.
important to have this hiring
Mhm.
plan with all the resources that you need, and of course, prioritize, like you said. Okay,
Mhm.
prioritize what are the critical roles and the critical tasks, and what
Mhm.
are the ones that are not so critical.
How often, and like statistically, what is the percentage of the startups which are prepared and more or less they go work according to their plan, and what is the percentage that not?
I don't want to sound rude, but
Mm-hmm.
most of the startups are not prepared,
Mm-hmm.
and that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, we're talking about small teams,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes only the founders are still bootstrapping and working to have an MVP and to
Mm-hmm.
launch their product, and at the same time fundraising for private investors and trying to get clients. So
Yeah,
it's not
everything at once.
everything at once. It's not easy
Mm-hmm.
to be prepared. So it's not very common to have a startup that really knows how things flow and what do you need to prepare in advance. I I had some cases in the past where startups were prepared, but they were mostly because they already had some experience like that before,
Mm-hmm.
or in the company that they worked for,
Yeah.
or in their final academic research. So they already know that how the things should be
Mm-hmm.
applied and all the things that should be reported. So in those cases, they are prepared. But even when they are prepared, they don't have the time to do that. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
why they try to outsource this.
And what do you think? Why do you think it's such a difficult challenge to think in advance, like what kind of the employees you will be needed? Is it because product development or business development usually is very flexible and startups are changing it, or is it because it's difficult to define, like
Mhm.
what kind of the competences or skills you need?
I think a little of both things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on one hand, there is a clear mismatch between most of the public fundings available and the reality of a startup. Okay, I would say, and I work with this industry for with this kind of service for almost 13 years, so
Okay.
for a long time,
Yeah.
and I noticed that most of these calls and programs, they are designed not for startups but for more mature companies, or at least for more typical industries. Okay, where you can know in advance what are the needs to overcome certain milestones. For example, if you are working in a traditional industry, you know that if you acquire some machinery, you will increase your
Yeah. Easy to
productivity.
predict.
Of course, when you're talking about IT and product development in IT, that where most of the startups are included, that's not so easy to predict. We don't know exactly if you hire
Yeah.
certain profile that will increase
And it's by definition because startups and people at startups have to be very agile, right?
exactly,
Super flexible because you never know. You might pivot the next
exactly,
day, right
exactly.
after you
And
receive the
that's the
grant.
other thing that I will add, that usually startups define their plans in the short term. They can have like a work plan for 6 months, 12 months. And even on that, usually these programs are for longer projects, okay? 12 to 14 months to 36 months. And for a startup to think 3 years in advance is really hard.
It's
So
almost impossible.
of course. So that's why it's so hard to define. And you said it. Most of the startups work in an agile way, and their teams are agile as well. And there is a mix between payroll and subtracting. And again, these programs usually are more stable companies with specific needs that already have more stability. So that's why there is a challenge for startups, but at the same time, there is also great opportunity because one of the great challenge of startups is fundraise. It's getting
Of
money
course. Yeah.
to make things happen.
Yeah.
And having a mix of public funding that I don't like to call it like that, but in reality, it's free money.
Yeah.
Okay, you are
Yeah.
accessing free money, of course, with some strings attached and requirements, all that, of course. But at the end, it's free money, and merging that with private investment, maybe you can solve
Yeah.
your fundraising needs. And even investors, at least in my experience, even investors like to see when you are de-risking their investment. So instead of asking for a higher round or a
Yeah.
bigger amount, you can de-risk their investment by asking a smaller
Yeah. Yeah.
round and then
Definitely.
look for other funding sources like grants. And usually this works well. And investors like to see that you are proactive, looking for other solutions. So it's a challenge, of course it is. Most of the time it's not the best fit for a startup. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity. If you can prepare in advance and choose the right partners, choose the right players to be with you in this application process, you can succeed. You can get good opportunities and take advantage of this.
What if you are prepared and the whole plan for the, I don't know, 12, 14, even longer time is prepared, but the circumstances changed, you're changing the market or even your product, and you need to change the head account, like,
Mhm.
or the roles or the competencies and skills you thought you will need, but you don't need them anymore. How to behave, like what next should startups take?
Yeah, that's not easy to answer because, like I said, these programs are kind of strict. Okay, you present a plan, they approve your plan. Okay, and there are not people behind it because you are just negotiating with the government or with a public institution that are giving you the money. You don't have like an account manager to discuss how can things pivot like you have it, for example, with private investors.
Yeah.
If your business change or if you face some barriers in your business, you can go to your VC and ask that we should pivot, we should
Yeah.
move in another direction, and you can adapt and adjust in an easier way. When you're talking about grants, that's not exactly working like that because you approved your plan, you should stay more or less strict with your plan. But there's still some flexibility. If your great vision, if your final deliverables, your final outcomes that you committed when you applied didn't change as much,
Mm-hmm.
you can ask for a readjustment of the project. Okay,
Okay.
you can show how you face the barriers, or what are the struggles that you are facing, why you need to change, and what are the new plan. Okay, if you are very clear in the changes, you might have a chance
Mm-hmm.
of changing the terms of the
Mm-hmm.
grant. But if this is not that clear, or if there's like a total pivot in your business, in that case, maybe the best option is like withdraw your proposal and
Mm-hmm.
try again from the beginning.
Okay.
Because there is no black box when you apply to this. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if something goes wrong, it's
Mm-hmm.
not bad to delete this application and start over, because there is no black box, unless you still are owning the government by
Yeah.
money that you should reimburse in previous grants or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not the case,
Mm-hmm.
if not is not what is happening, you are pivoting your business. You should pivot your grant as well.
Okay, so there's a way out,
Of
right?
course, yes, of course, of course.
Okay, and so, like in your career, especially working with startups, so what did you notice more, like planning the roles, the job openings the companies are going to have is more difficult, and the biggest failure isn't that, or something else, like any other recruitment or hiring failures?
Yeah, there are other recruitment failures that happens because so far we have been talking about the process. Okay,
Yeah,
so until you get there,
yeah.
okay, after you get there, after you actually have an approved funding and you can start your project based on that. I already faced some, or already helped some startups that were struggling with the recruitment process, or because they didn't find the right people,
Mm-hmm.
or because actually the conditions change, and when what they predicted that will be like the minimum or the wage that they have for that
Mm-hmm.
profile was not enough to find the right people. These
Mm-hmm.
kind of mismatches that might happen in your recruitment, this might create some problems in the
Mm-hmm.
project execution, because when you face something like this, you still have a timeline
Mm-hmm. Okay.
to commit, or a timeline that you committed to deliver your milestones and your
Mm-hmm.
deliverables and your outcomes.
Yeah.
So any delay that you might face in the
Mm-hmm.
recruitment process might create some problems
Yeah.
into the project. And in the worst case scenario, I already saw not a lot, but a few cases like where this happened. The ambition to growth that is really common to startups, when they already have a plan to multiply their team and their payroll
By
by
hundreds.
hundreds, and that's quite common.
Yeah.
And when they design the plan, but when they face the reality, is not exactly like that. So they
Yeah.
have to reduce their ambitions and reduce their expectations to a more
Mm-hmm.
reality level, but you have committed with the
Mm-hmm.
other
Already.
metrics. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this might be a problem. And already at the case that this was what happened, and at the end, the company didn't receive the funding
Mm-hmm.
because they committed with higher metrics that they cannot achieve in
Mm-hmm.
reality. They can't achieve that. And they even have to reimburse the money that they received in the beginning. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you approve something like this, you receive an advance payment, like a
Mm-hmm.
pre-payment so you can start the project.
Yeah.
But they receive that. But when they start rolling out
Mm-hmm.
the project and start looking for what they need in terms of recruitment, that was not exactly what they
Mm-hmm.
applied before, and they have to reimburse
Mm-hmm.
what they received. So,
Okay.
and for a startup, that's a problem,
Yeah, of
because
course.
the lack of resources, including money,
Mm-hmm.
that's always lacking, and it's common in startups.
Yeah.
You were predicting to have additional funding, and
Mm-hmm.
you end over with paying back some
Yeah.
money that you were
Yeah.
not.
That's the worst.
Yeah,
That's the
so
worst.
that's the worst case scenario that I saw. So
How
let,
often does this happen?
that's not very often.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at least from my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, from the companies that work with us, that we know and we help them, we always try to have them prepared.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, it's their decision, of course. If they
Mm-hmm.
want to say that we will hire 100 people tomorrow, okay? If that's what you believe that will happen, I'm
Yeah.
not the one that will say that will not happen.
Sure.
But we'll always try to show them that Okay, but are you aware there is a commitment when you say this? Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know. Okay, if you know, we can move forward. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not very common, at least with the projects and the startup that we help.
Okay.
Right?
Good. Good to know.
Yeah, but that's I would say that would be like the worst case scenario that can happen to a startup is having that. And of course, that will change a lot
Mm-hmm.
the perception that you have of these fundings.
Okay. Okay. Any other insights you saw with working with startups?
Yeah, there are also because so far we are only talking about the bad things that can happen. Maybe we can change this and talk a little bit about how this can be a good
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. I had one company that we helped in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
2017. We helped them access the first funding. They already opened for 3 or 4 years. They were bootstrapping, they were gaining clients, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to develop a new product at that time. So far, they didn't have any public funding. So
Mm-hmm.
they heard about this from other clients and other partners, and they said that everyone is getting a piece of that. I want a piece as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked with us, and we helped them in 2016, 2017, and we
Mm-hmm.
helped them with the first funding. The first funding at that time was kind of small scale. It was 80K. They
Mm-hmm.
got an 80K funding. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a big grant. It's something just for deploy one different product that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to compare their situation at that time and the situation that they are
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. At that time, they were a team of seven. They had a revenue in that year. They closed that year with more or less 200K of
Mm-hmm.
revenue. And last year, 2022, we had a dinner with them because they wanted to celebrate with us. Because after that, they got another one,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended the last year with 2.5 million euros in
Okay.
revenue and a team of 40. So we
Mm-hmm.
multiplied their team by four
Nice.
or by five. And that's also a good thing to have. And it started with a small grant that
Mm-hmm.
it helped them understand the procedures, what they need to do
Yeah.
to do that. In the second one, they upscaled. They
Mm-hmm.
asked for more, and they already because they were more comfortable with all the
Yeah.
process. So
Yeah.
it's also a good advice to adapt what you are asking for the
Mm-hmm.
moment where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because if you don't have a lot of experience in this, even if you are working with partners that can help you, you
Mm-hmm.
should be in the place that you are comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, to ask for
Not to
something that
risk too much.
yeah, if you are
Mm.
comfortable with that money, you are comfortable with the commitment that you are taking, and all that stuff. Okay, so it's important to, and then you can ask for other projects and be more ambitious in the next ones.
Cool, great. And so, to summarize and to conclude our conversation, if there is like a freshly born startup founder meeting you at some conference on somewhere, and their question would be like, "What is the key advice you would give me in terms of the recruitment?" What would that be?
I think it will depend on the stakeholder that you are
Hmm.
approaching.
Hmm.
Okay, uh, but I always like to advise my startups or my clients that
Hmm.
I usually don't like to see like that high growth
Hmm.
business plan that will multiply by 100, like you were saying, in one year. Of course, you should show ambition. Of course, you
Hmm.
should have like medium-term vision that your company will grow, that you are defending your
Hmm.
project in your company. But I like to see how stability, how stable a company can grow.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
I'm growing, but I'm growing stable. Besides, I'm asking for funding for grants, private investors, or any other source. I will have my revenues. I will create my own value by my
Hmm.
own work. Okay, so my advice would say that do not rely only on external funding,
Yeah.
but rely also or mostly on your capacity to generate your revenue. And one
Hmm.
thing I believed in this for a long time, and but it's interesting to see that most of the investments ecosystem is now moving in this direction. There is a downturn on investment in size of, there's not a downturn in size of investment. There are less investment rounds in the last year, but the total volume of investments more or less staying the same. And this is happening because I think investors are looking more for this kind of companies, companies that show a stable growth,
Yeah.
okay, and that can have, despite they are having external investment, they are getting their product on the market, their service on the market, they are getting the real feedback from the market and getting revenues from there. Okay, if you have this, external funding will be easy. Okay, because if you show revenues, if you show a stable growth, the grants are always a good option because you have the trust and the confidence to apply and to get these fundings. It will be something that you can use to maximize your growth and maximize your plans.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So thank you so much, Bruno, for your time and sharing your experience. And thank you to all the listeners. If you like this podcast, please leave your review on Spotify. For more podcasts, please visit jobrely.com, sign up for our newsletter, and get an exclusive peek into the life of startups.
Thank you.